Hello guys, welcome to another session. This is process guide. We're going to be doing gene controller, DAO, DTO, and services. So if you don't know what that means, just ride along. Just pretend as if you know what that means. Okay, so let's go ahead. The last time we were doing this, we pretty touched based on a couple of concepts about the um, controller, model, there's no view, data access layer, and also the DTO. So we'll be looking at doing a full run of the entire or an application, the full blown thing from the beginning to the end. I'll be using job type 2 as an example of what we want to do. So we want to be able to list job titles. We want to do the whole crude. That's create. Well, I don't know if we're going to be doing create, but majorly I want to just do the CRUD. I'll try as much as possible to see which I can cover. Okay, I've not created any of them before. I'm starting kind of from beginning. So even though I've modeled different type of controllers, so we'll be talking about controllers, DAO, DTO, services, models, right? So all those things, we'll be looking at them one after the other. Our entry point starts from controller, right? And then we go to other parts of the system. You can literally start from anywhere, but most times the entry point is always controller. And there's also the route. The route is how you get into the entire thing. So let me just close everything so that we can have like a fresh start. The main part of the application comes like so, and we are focused on getting the list of job titles available in the application. Oh, we have something already. We have job roles. Okay, so these AI generated job roles. We will not touch this endpoint for now. So we have these endpoints. Let me see all the endpoints that we have. So we have something like this that automatically call the endpoints using routes, so that instead of me listing them out this way, I can kind of house them inside here and be safe. So I think this is where we need to put it, org routes. So there's nothing special being done here other than calling all the routes that are associated with the organization module. Okay, so this company's announcement. So the right place for us to put our job role or job title is this part. And anybody that will be listing the job title should be using a secure, you need to be logged on kind of. So this is a kind of variable I created to say that this person is secured. If you are going through this place, you are secured because I route it through. I'm supposed to be routing it through an authentication middleware. So let's see how it's coming in. So v1 is coming in like so, and from here I can't see if v1 is authenticated. So what I want to do right now is I want to even stop my application from running so that I can fully be focused. So the purpose of this secure is to kind of create a way to pass middleware. So I can pass a middleware here and say secure. So I can create a middleware and provide this authentication middleware. So that way, oh, I can see that it's done here. So that has been done here. But so what that means is that all these ones are not secured. That is the meaning of all these ones. So it's supposed to be called first before being used. But I'm just going to ignore that for later documentation. So let's go and see if we want to do something like job roles or job titles. So these are going to be all the endpoints for job title. So secure, we're doing a get, and what parts are we calling? We can do, should I make it company / job title? So there is always a debate when it comes to naming your endpoints. Job roles, job title. So I'm gonna leave that like this. Then this is to get one, and let's first get everything first. So this is to get all the job titles, and we need to create a controller. So I'll say job and ctrl, and of course it's not created, so let's create it. We're just creating something that does not exist. So we have this, and we can say get job titles. So we have created a monster. So we've created something like this. It does not exist. So we have new job title controller. Okay, so that this will be able to do this. That's the idea. It's supposed to be a comma here. Okay, so this guy does not exist yet. That's what we want to go and create now. Where would we create this? Inside the API directory or package. That's where we start creating our controllers. So all controllers are inside here. Say job title .go. So we did this API thing, and the idea is so that if we have so many things up here, we can be able to differentiate which is which. Okay, so our package is API, and our type is job title controller. Not new first. Struct. So what will this struct be able to do? It will be able to I need an expo here. So let me just leave it like this first. So we need to create an instance of this so that we can perform action on it. So the first instance, how do you create that? You do new of this. We are returning the type of this. So we return the type of what we've just created. Okay, so we have this controller this way. Let's see. Okay, now I want to backtrack a little bit on this method of creating controller, and that was the first one. If you watch the part 1 of this video, it talked about it used another method, and that method requires you to create this first before you can use this controller. There are several methods in which you can implement the controller methods that we are trying to depict. So there are scenarios where you don't need to create the controller itself. You can just consume it by just calling the controller, that's by just saying API. By calling the package and using the function, you can use that method instead of creating an instance of the controller. So there are different methods in which you can use to achieve this. So this is one method which I've been using so far. The other method is what I want to also talk about today. And that method revolves you just calling the controller directly as a function. So instead of it being an object, you just call it as an object or as a function directly. So you won't need to go through that method of creating a controller like you would do with DAO or services. You just execute and say get job titles. Now, what that does is that you will just be able to do something like this and say get job titles. And because it's a controller, you need to have passing this inside this, the context. And the idea is that I mentioned this before, all the information about what is being sent forth is inside here. What I mean sent forth, if anybody is calling the endpoints, it comes with a lot of information that you might need to inspect. All those information are inside here, and then you can do with it what you want to do. Now, this one, you're not calling it as a function, you're calling it as a handle like this, so not as a function. So instead of creating it this way, you just call it this way. Now, the difference between using this method and this method is that this one here, you cannot access the controller or the method in the controller without first creating an instance of the controller. So this is used for a more larger project, which this is a large project, because imagine that you have API package and then you can easily access all the functions inside. It will all get messy very fast. But let's continue with this method. This method is fast, and that's the approach I want to go on this particular journey. We'll be using AI to do some stuff for us. So I want it to do documentation for us. Document the endpoint, document the endpoints. So I want it to document this endpoint for us, and then we can fill it with other information. So the documentation is very key as so I need Swagger documentation. Documentation, because it's gonna be job title. So, and it's also a get. So documentation, like I mentioned in previous video, is that it connects with some other parts of the system, because we are going to be using auto generation code to generate some part of the system. So we need this one done the way it's supposed to be. Now the data we're returning is a DTO of array of the objects. That's array of job title, which we need to create. So it's not a string, it's going to be DTO. We've not created that, and it's job title. I don't think this is existing. Now we've introduced something that we need to go and create, then we can come back here. Now I need to look at this if this is done correctly. Let me tell it to be array. So it needs to be array of DTO dot job title. So that's array of objects. Okay, so it's accepting it like that. Now the next thing is, I mentioned that we need to create this. Before we create this, we need to also check out the model. We are still in controller, so we are jumping to where now? To DTO, or model first, then DTO. So let's go to model. I don't think there's anything job title model here. So the only place job title can be is inside organizational model. I think I'm just going to put it here. Okay, let me make it have its own thing. So job title model.go. Because I already have the job title in the database, I'm just gonna pull it up. The table is already designed, and I will just tell this guy to make a a good work of it for me, like turn it to something I can use. So convert this to GoROM. We're also using GoROM. That's Go ORM. convert this to Gorom model. Okay, so that should not take us less than a couple of seconds. Once that is done, we will look at it to make sure that it matches what we want it to be, and we'll move on to the next thing. Quite a number of fields. You must be wondering, why do we have lots of fields? The application actually does a lot of things. I can see some typo error, but we're gonna leave them like that. So we have table. Why are some things underlining? Okay, so it means we've actually defined job title before. So you can see that it's saying that there's an issue. We've actually used it before. It has been imported somewhere. So it was used in employee model, so which is cool. So we have it sorted. That means I can actually delete this, or I can actually pull it out of there. Yeah, let me pull it out and let it sit here. Okay, that's good. Now that gives me a sense of the fact that I might actually have a DTO for it. So let's go and check if we have a DTO for it. We just search. Okay. So this is organizational. Let me try and search for it if we have anything like that. Job title DTO.go. Package. Then type. So looks like we don't have anything on that. Yeah, we don't have that. So what I want to do is the idea of DTO, as you should know, is that we want to minify or focus on the data that should be sent to the front end. That's majorly what the DTO is all about, and it doesn't need all these ones. It just need only the JSON. So I'm going to tell it to strip off or Gorom label or tag, and let's see if it will do a good work of that, and tell it to remove all Gorom attributes. Can we call this attributes? So let's see if it will make do with that. Once that one is removed, we're also going to remove quite some number of columns, because we don't need all to go to the front end. Okay, looking nice. We don't need this one. We don't need tenants. The number, I don't think is important. Parents, okay, for now you can just be looking at it. This is not important. Reference, nope. Category, nope. In fact, because it's going to level, no. Nah, it's critical. Yeah, that is true. Responsibility, qualification, standing days, day rate, other requirement, time in role, job family, all these ones are advanced. From level the advanced, other requirement. I think we are good. Why is everything stars? So this is gonna give us some problem later on, but good thing is you can actually tone that down. So these are actually making sure that it's required, but I'm gonna leave that like that as it is, and then move on to other things. Now that the DTO is set, we could actually go back to the controller and see what is happening in the controller. Yep, that's the API part. So this part is good to go. We have it defined. The next thing is to call our DAO. DAO is the one that has to do the data. So we'll call it by saying, I can say job DAO is equal to new format. So new job title DAO, which does not exist, and we don't know what we're passing to it yet. So, but let's go and create it, and this will be inside a package called DAO.this, right? So that's what we want to do it. So let's go and create this guy, then we'll come back to this section. Now, if you come to DAO here, we can create new, say job title.dao.go, and I think I'm jumping the gun now. Our next point of call is not a DAO, it's supposed to be service, but let me go ahead and create DAO, and I'll tell you why we have to call the service first before the DAO. But there are some times where you could just want to do your shortcut and call the DAO, but that is not always the case. The rule is supposed to be controller. So I did this in the first one, controller, the service DAO. That's the rule. But what I just did right now is controller and DAO. So you could actually break the loop, right? Nothing is cast in stone. So this is the approach you're supposed to go with it. But you could actually link directly from the controller to the DAO. That's the data side. So let me just go ahead and create the DAO, but I'm still going to come to the, or let's just go through the official route and call the service. Okay. So even though I've created the DAO stuff, I won't do anything. I'll just call it package DAO, and then I will just stop there. Then I'll come back to it later. Let's go ahead and deal with the service. So where is the service, and what's the purpose of the service? The service is supposed to aggregate and call all the things that the function is supposed to do. Remember, the API is to get lists of job title available. The purpose of the service is going to make sure that that is done, like get all the things needed. And you could argue that, why can't I do that in the controller, right? The controller is supposed to be the one to dispatch the information, because the controller can do one or two things, is to return and, you know, turn off and talk about the error or whatever, if it's successful or not. So services do what they are supposed to do, you know, get the job done. So we're gonna call this job title underscore services.go. So there's no S. And what are we gonna call this one now? So we'll put services there, package dot services. So what's the structure for this? Each of them has to be, you have to first create a type of. The only one you don't create type of is the controller. You just go ahead and put your function there. Okay, so let's go and focus now. So we'll do type. What is the name? This is job title service. So you put service at the back of everything. If you are doing DAO, you put DAO. If you're working with controller, put controller, like that. You put it so that you know what part of the level you are working on. Now, your services might need some things to work. For now, I'm not going to pass anything, just for you to understand some things. I'm not going to be passing any variable across, but I can tell we're going to be needing one or two things. So you will need to create an instance of this service. So, and the way to do that is to say new. We're creating a new thing. I'm going to put new and then repeat that same thing here, so that it will be easy for us to, you know, reuse and everything. And you are returning an instance of this guy. So you return it by putting that there and returning pointer to this. So that is what we are supposed to do for services, and this template is what you are going to use for everything. This is more of like a way to create an object. We'll get into that later. So we're in services. If you are in controller, or rather if you are in DAO, you do the same thing to DAO, but we'll get that in a bit. So let's go ahead and create this service. Let's go ahead and consume it from this part. Remember, we were trying to consume DAO directly, so we change that to service. We change our mind. Job service, and you start with service dot. It's now available to you now. New job service. So this is how to use it. Job service dot new service. So what can your job service do? We didn't give it anything to do. It's just blank. So you need to tell it that it can do something. One of the things you want to tell it to do is that it can get list of service for you. And it's so, and that's why it was tempting for me to go and call the DAO directly, because there's no much I'm doing. There's no much that the service is doing. Now it's just looking like a waste of time. But like I said, it's very important that you have the service there. You will see the purpose that the service will eventually achieve down the line. Now, to create a member function of job title service, you need to create it in this format. So look at this as a form of an object-oriented approach that Go try to use. Now you will use a variable name. So I will say S for service, and I will get a pointer of this, and that is star this. You can then provide your variable name, or rather your function name, that says get job title, and then you can then return, you can then start writing your function. Is this correct? You can start writing your function to actually call the DAO. So I can say call DAO to go and do the actual thing. So let's consume this guy. So right now, this is now available for you to do job. This is too long. Let's say job s. So job s dot get. So you can see that now your service can now go and get all the job titles. And the idea is that it's supposed to return DTO job titles to you, so that you can return it like so. So you can return it. There's a way you return stuff from the controller. The controller returns data differently. That's using this one here. That's c.json, and then you put the code. That's OK. HTTP status code for OK. That status OK. Then you return the whatever this guy returns, which is supposed to be array of job titles. So even though it's not returning anything now, I want to put something for it to return. So I will say jobs, and this is looking to somehow. So let me go ahead and say services, and okay, let me say service. Then I'll call this DTO jobs. So that's what is returning. That's what it should return. But we know that when it's trying to do this, it can stumble and get into error. So it should be returning two things. It should return this guy and also return error, which we are going to check later. But eventually, whatever it returns, it should give me this guy here. So we need to go and make it return two things here. So go back to the function and provide the two things it should return. It should return DTO array of DTO dot, what's the guy again? Job titles. Okay, then it's also returning error. So those are the two things it can return. Now I'm going to call my DAO to get me what it needs to get and convert it to this. We're going to get there step by step. Okay, so let's return our, okay, we can't return anything now because we need to call the DAO. Okay, how do we call our DAO? We've not created it, so we say DAO dot new. So I'm looking at the method because you can actually access your DAO from your services if you wish. That's if you've made it a part of what are the things that you need to pass here. So there are so many. This is where there are different opinion or different choices that you could make. You could pass your DAO as part of the requirements when you are creating your job title so that it internally knows what to do, or you can create your DAO separately so that anybody can make use of it at what point or at any time you like. So let's go ahead and do JDAO is equal to DAO dot new job title DAO. Okay, which we've not created already. So let's go ahead and create this. Okay, so if we go to look at where the job title is sitting, DAO, I've created this. So now what do we do here? We do type, the type, and what else? We then do the, what do we call it now? Job title DAO and struct. Again, I'm not going to pass anything yet, so you are still going to see what is happening. All this one, I didn't pass anything yet. I'm just creating an object, struct, empty struct. You still see where the magic will come in later. So we need to create an instance of this by doing ability to create an instance of this, new type of this, and that will address this one here. Okay, so there's a typo there. Okay, so we now have this pointer to this so that you can return this. Okay, now this is the actual time we are allowed to hit the database. We just got to the DAO. DAO is the one that gives access, or that gives you permission. It's the only one that has the permission to hit the database. So I can then do function and carry D here, stands for DAO, and get a pointer of this guy. Get a pointer of this. And the idea is that so that whatever object that this one has or parameter that it has, we can use it. Okay, so you're going to see the function of all these things. Now we want to say get job titles. In your head now you are like, we've written 3 get job titles now. We've not gotten the job title. At what point are we going to get the job title? We are getting it very soon. So what am I returning here? I'm returning 2 things. Now I'm returning the models of the job title, not job level, job title. That's the model is the one-to-one representation of the database, like that's the Go ORM, and also returning error if there are errors in the system. So this part is very important. So the next part is, and then need to write the direct query to query database. to query a database, I can get a connection. That's from a configuration. This is this one is in my config, by the way. So if you are using Gene, you should have connected your database because it uses this one, go ROM rather, not Gene, go RM. So you use this method to connect, and you can use this to now query your database and say model and what have you, and get all job title, which I'm going to do, by the way. Now, instead of me calling this directly here, I should have access to it from this guy. This one should be able to make use of it. I don't have to be calling configuration every time, creating it. I can have an instance of this immediately I create this. So that's where this guy will come into play, this D. This D here allows me to use whatever has been created inside here. So instead of me using this directly here, this configuration DB, I can put it inside here and make use of it. So this will be a way for me to get access to the database, like so. So if I do it this way, what then happens is that I'll be forced to specify that database when I'm creating it here, because when I'm returning this, I'm creating an instance of this. I need to now tell this that, hey, my DB is, this is supposed to be Gene. So this is data type, by the way. So I'm not telling it that, hey, the DB is what I define in my own internal application, which is this. So this is data type. It's a type of connection that you can use. Why does this AI just scatter this thing for me? Okay, back to where I'm coming from. Okay, so this is what is going on here. So instead of me manually doing this and using it across board, I've automatically make this available so that this is supposed to be Gorom, not Gene. Yeah. So instead of me manually specifying this directly from here, I will just use this D and this DB. So this D becomes here and this DB becomes here, like so. Then I can go ahead and query what I need to query. Now you will like ask, why can't we just do it directly? And I've mentioned that is so that this creates one at once, because you're going to be doing this before you do every other thing, and you can do this with other variable type, not necessarily only this, which you'll be seeing later down the line. Okay, so I have I need to query my database. What do I need to, how do I need to query it? I just say this is another tutorial entirely. This is how to use go ROM, so it's different from what we are doing. I need to have an instance of this first, an array of it, because I want to populate things inside it, and I'll create a variable and call this JB is equal to this, right? So that I can populate whatever I'm doing inside what I'm about to do. So I then do, the next thing for me to do is to, I'm not finding anything, I just say first. Oh, okay, no, I actually find. So the idea is that I'm finding all that is available inside a particular, so I can pass this data here, so it will go and look for all of this and put here. It returns, if you look at this, it returns, does this return an error? Okay, yeah, it eventually returns an error, like so. If you specify error, like this. Yep. So it executes this and puts the value of what you've done inside this place so that your model job title will then be populated, and you can safely return your JB and your error if there's any error. If there's any error, it's going to be added into here and your execution will be here. So we are done with job titles. This is supposed to query job title for us. If you notice, job title has a field which is unique. What does that field mean? That field is a way for us to filter by tenants, because the system store all the information in one table. You need to be able to filter by tenants, and a way to do that is by making sure that tenant is being supplied. We're going to get there. How can you pass tenant to this table from wherever it's coming from? Because this is coming from this now. It's coming from the services. So before we continue, let's beef up this a little bit. Now, here we've been able to create a new instance of this. This is a very good point for you to specify who your tenant is, or for you to pass an information that will allow you to get your tenants. And that information is called context. Now, if you notice, our context is kind of lost here. There's no context. Let's go back one more step. Here is where our context is. Context is what comes up. You can see the full details of context. Everything that is from the client side. And we refuse or we fail to pass it to our services. This guy needs that context right now. So we need to be able to pass it to the services. So if I pass it here, fine. But we didn't tell new job title that it can receive a context. So we need to do that now. So go back one step and specify that, hey, you can actually receive a context. So I will do C. Let me say context. And it's gene context. So that being said, the next thing we need to do is that even though we've said it, you will notice that this guy is not receiving the context, because we didn't say that it can accept. Yeah, we say it can accept a context when creating it, but it's not owning that context because it doesn't have that as part of the things that you can do. So we need to put it as part of the things you can do. So we say context, you can just say CX, and data type is gene context. So we need to repeat the same thing here. Now that it can accept a context, this guy can now come into it and enjoy. So we can say whatever context that has been passed from the front end or from the caller can now sit here. So therefore, we now have context inside our function. How do we access the context in our function? It's through this guy here. So that context can either also go into here as something that the job title will figure out and work on. So it's your decision to make how you want to go about it. Either to also dump the context down the line to your DAO, or you give your DAO what it wants. So your DAO wants the tenant ID actually. It doesn't want the full context. But for a lazy man, I will just send it the whole context. Don't have time. So I come here and give it the whole context. Now you need to tell your DAO that it can actually consume the context. But let's make this experimental and just give it what it needs. So what it needs is actually tenants, not the whole of the context. So let's be practical here. Now, how do you get the tenant ID? I will just say tenant ID. So you can see that our service is now doing some work now. It's not just that it's going to call a DAO like that. So it's doing an actual work by, stressing itself to get tenants and feeding the information that is required to the DAO. So I create a utility class to be able to get tenant ID through the context that I will provide. So I'll say CX. So CX is from X. So I can do that. So I don't want to use this. Let me use something more explicit so let's say context here. So that's what we'll need to type out here. So it's make more sense. So when you provide a context to this utility function, it will give you tenant ID. So that tenant ID is needed by the DAO to use to filter whatever it's doing with the job title. So I can pass that information here. Now I have to go back to the DAO to say, hey, I also need tenant ID. Even though I've given it, you didn't specify that you needed it. The only thing that you specified that you needed was the DB, but that DB was also automatically, injected. So I will say here, I need tenant ID. Tenant ID. Let me see the data type. I don't want to start doing any conversion. So it's uint. That's so crazy. So and the idea is that so that it will accept any amount of big number that might be. Okay, so once we put that down there, it means when you are creating new job title, it's something that we want to accept from the caller. So we say tenant ID is something we want to accept. Now that you've accepted it, you need to set it. So that setting needs to come here. And yep, you've done that. Now that you have the tenant ID, guess what? You can use it inside your get titles to filter, because what you just did here was just find everything, which is not advisable, because you are focused on only getting for a particular tenant. So you can now comfortably write your where clause, and your where clause should do the following. So you can now specify tenant ID, but just in case we'll be joining other table in the future, I will just do something like this to be more specific, and then you can then provide the tenant. Guess where the tenant ID will be? Tenant ID will be inside this D, because this D is the instance of this DAO which has access to these two things. Okay, so we can do D dot tenant ID, and that will only give us the job title of only the tenants that you're looking at. So we've gone from just a minimalistic approach to something more sophisticated, and you can pass in, you can create more attributes over time. Let's go back one step backward and then see. So this thing is now making sense. You can see that your job title, get job title, even though they are named the same way, they are doing different things. Now this one now is not doing anything yet. We need to actually call the DAO to do stuff for us. So let's call the get job titles. Now the get job title returns two things. It returns models of job title. So I'll say m jobs, this, and error as well. So return these two things. So I can say return. Okay, so before I start returning stuff, let me explain what is gonna happen here. So we have our error, and I can check if there's error. If error is not equals to nil, so return nil, then I will return nil is supposed to be 1n, return error. So what this one does is, if it is not nil, terminate here by returning that this one is empty and providing this error to this one, and go and treat it in the controller. Okay, but if it's eventually scaled through, there's something we need to do, and that is a function that we need to call. That function is like a helper function, and what it does is that it copies a valid model into a DTO. It copies that function is very, very helpful. So I'm gonna go and copy it somewhere. It's also provided by Gorom, so they provided that function, and that's one of the major things you also do in the service section. You can see that the work that the service is doing is quite much now. It's making sense. So it's called copier. So what copier does is that it copy the model. Let me save that. It copies from where? It copies from the model jobs into the DTO. Now the DTO needs to be created. We don't have the DTO yet, so we'll create the DTO we want to copy into, and that will be array. So we can say DTO of jobs. We have it like this, DTO. So what that means is that whatever we get here will be loaded into here, and it will be safe to return. So we then return this value and nil, because error was not detected. If you get here successfully, it means no error was detected, and this is the only thing you were able to return. So you can see that our code is looking robust now. Kind of. It's looking substantial. Remember, the point of this part is so that you can have something good to look at from the client side. You don't want to return all the whole of the model, so that's why we have to, this is a must do, and it's supposed to be done in your service. Service is kind of a, I won't say a cleaner. Yeah, it's kind of a cleaner. It does a lot, but the DTO does just one thing. Is the only guy that has, or rather the DAO is the only one that has access to your database and does all the needful. So it's very important that you are able to differentiate those two things. Now that this guy is looking good, we don't have another thing we are doing with this guy again. Let's look at the DTO as well. DTO, or rather the DAO is also looking good and slim, all looking slick. Let's go back to the controller, the beginner, the person that began all of this, and let's see where we are with this. So we already have the context, which we sent here, and further down the line, if you needed to pass parameter, remember you can still pass parameter to all these things. Later on, you will see how you can get a particular by ID. That's when you start passing parameter, and you can still use your parameter to do stuffs. Okay, now we have unattended error. So we can do by doing if error is not equal to nil, what should happen? We have a utility to handle something like this. Send error, we'll pass the context to it, we'll say the type of HTTP error that it is, and I think this should be internal server error, or let me see, what did they even call that one? Server internal server error. Then we now pass the error itself to it. So I need to define this one very well. Bad request, bad gateway. No. There's one I'm looking for. Okay, I think, yeah, it's internal server error. Now that we're actually done with the function, we are good to go. Now what I need to do is to provide more documentation, because what you've done now, you've done successful here. You didn't treat this error. So, and it sees it. You will just come here, highlight everything, and ask your AI to update the Swagger documentation. You will see that it's going to capture this part that was missing, And if there are other ones that's missing, it's also going to capture that as well. So if I accept this change, I should be seeing that it now has error 500, which is great. It says it does that. I think we've been able to achieve that goal. Let's now see if we can call our endpoint successfully and move on with the next thing. I have a REST kind of a stuff here that I built that I can use to call things like this. So I will do, yes, HTTP REST. Yeah, so let me just do, I will need to do 9,000. Is that the IP? Oh, okay, the server is down. I think I've off the server. So let's run the server again. So I'll do make dev, and then it should build all the things it needs to build. Let's give it a try. So where is my port? I don't think it's hitting the server. Okay, so I think it's hitting the server now. Let's go ahead and call the new endpoints that we just created. And that is supposed to be get job titles. I will just change this to job titles. And this should be job titles. I can remove all of this and try and do a get. I spent some hours here forgetting to remove this. So if I do our get, our first response was a nil. So I think there will be a session where we would look at tests, how to do tests, you know, and make sure that all these things is sorted before you go and start calling stuff. Okay, so we are getting a nil. We're getting a nil, so meaning we are not there yet. So how do you start figuring out what went wrong? So how do you start? Now you need to know where your issue is coming from. So right now you can start by debugging. So let's go to the first thing we have here. We got nil, which was strange. Who is even printing? Who is responsible for printing the nil? Okay, so it's what we returned as the nil. Okay, fair enough. Now I know it's a pointer, might be a pointer thing, but let's see where we hit all those things. So here that we have job roles, we can actually print. I know I'm still gonna get the same results, but let me start printing from here and put inside there. So if I call my guy, okay, so that's the nil thing there. So let's go one step in and see what is happening. So first of all, let's make sure that we are getting our tenants. Our tenant is printing something. So let's check out what's happening in the tenants guy. So you can do tenant ID and passing your tenant this way. So when you hit the endpoint now, let's see what we get. So tenant is 1, which is correct. So we are getting to the main points gradually. So this part, there's no issues. Now the other issue happens to be where we are doing this one. So let's make sure that we are actually getting this out of here. So I think this issue will be here. So let's check. Let's do fmt. But I'm kind of worried. It's supposed to actually print the statement too, so that we can see what's going on, but it's not printing statement, which is very funny. It's supposed to print the SQL statement that made this happen. So if I put this one here, I should see what's going on. So if we call this guy, okay, so it's running, it's working. So this is the details. This is database. It's actually call it, but it didn't get to the backend. The jobs didn't get to the backend. Yep. So let's see why it didn't get to the backend. You can see that it's nil here, so something is wrong somewhere. Now our job is actually running. We saw it here, so let me get it outside this function. So immediately I call this, which is here. Let me print it here. Let me print it here and see what happens. So job titles. So let's print it here. Where is the return? So the return is here. So we're expecting it to also show up here. So if I come to this part, I should see that same lot of stuff there, which is where it's working. Okay, so our data is lost somewhere, which is very funny. I don't normally have this issue. So our issue is coming from this copier. Oh, so our data is not being copied. Our data is not being copied. So let's fix that. So our data is not being copied, and we need to figure out where that is coming from. So if we go to this place, let's take it one after the other. This one is correct. So we have I think this one needs to be a pointer. Yes, so this is where the problem is. So this one needs to be a pointer so that data can load inside it. That's where our problem is. But okay, I don't want to. So that's one of the challenges you have in Go, pointer and reference. That's another topic for another day. That's another topic for another day. Don't want to go into that now. So this should work now. I've removed all the prints. If I go ahead and give it a try, I should see my results. So that is it. We have our data coming to us courtesy Go controller services and DAO plus DTO. Yep, that's it. I think we're done with backends. We can actually quickly go to front end, but I must add one or two things just to buttress or to add to the whole saga, that you will need to be passing more stuff. Let's go to this one so that you get the context, because here is just this. What if you want to do by ID? So this is where you are passing by ID. You will be able to duplicate this I will just tell it to do this for get job title by ID. So I hope it will be able to fit in all the things it needs to fit in, like change all the things it needs to change. Of course, it's going to notice that some of the endpoint does not exist, or the new function does not exist, because so we've introduced new things like this, but this is wrong. I'm gonna do it the right way. Now this is the part I was very particular about. Okay, when we return, we are returning one job title, not array of it. So there are 4 kind of errors that can occur, which it itself introduces for us. Okay, so let's start from the beginning here. We're going to be using the context to get the ID here. I don't know why it's using this method to get the ID, where it knows that it's supposed to using cparam to get the ID. Is it param or params? I can't remember, but if it doesn't work, it's on you. So I think it's param. Okay, it's param. So we have that, and then returns only string, which is okay. I don't need to say anything. I'm waiting for that string to come in. Now the next thing I want to also do is this function does not exist, but we're getting there. I pass the context to it. Now okay, you are doing oversabi too much. So this one is not found error. Okay, I'll leave it. But why are you using this method? It's creating things that I don't have. So I'm just gonna make it do one particular error. That will solve the case. So 404, we're not treating 404 for now. Okay, this looks good. The next one we need to do is to create this function that does not exist, and we'll tell this guy to also create that function for us. So we need to duplicate this one first and tell it to convert to this for us, and then you inspect the code and make sure it satisfies what are the things that you want it to meet. Yep, very interesting. It's supposed to receive an ID and return one of these. I think this is one of the things that is causing issue. You can see that it's returning a pointer of this, and that's what caused issue here. If we had been returning a pointer of this, would we have been having issue? This is okay. Let me just leave it like this. So this one will be required to do this. Okay, let me leave it like this. We'll come back to that. This pointer thing here, you guys need to go and learn about it very well. Now we've been able to do that. We'll pass tenant to it. We did this to it. Of course, the DAO needs to get this type sorted. So we go to the DAO part and also fix its own part of the section. This is us calling the database directly. And we come here and tell it that convert to this, and let it go and do its thing and get us the heaven out of here. So I notice something is using pointer for everything. It's using, so we didn't use pointer in what we did before. We just used direct reference. So it's using pointer for it. And like I said, I won't talk about pointer and reference in today's session. That will take us into so many things I won't want to talk about. Okay, that's fine. And I like the fact that it's making sure that it's always querying with the tenants. This is the downside to using this methodology. You have to always be mindful of querying by tenants, else you go and spill data where you're not supposed to spill it. Okay, now this needs to be converted to integer, obviously. It needs to convert it to 64 to be precise. Now we are done almost. This one too needs to convert this data to what it will accept. Okay, it has opened up more cans of worm, which I don't know why you did this, but you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to convert this to, how do you even convert this? How do you convert to type 64? I think convert, that's a long thing, no? Convert to u64, uint 64. That's a very long, you first convert it to number, it has a very long stuff, and it also catches error. Yeah, so that is that. Does it still accept it? Is this, what does this one want? It wants, oh, it just wants uint. So this should be 32. No. What did you want? You want just uint. So it doesn't need this 32-bit size. It will just be base 10. This guy has scattered everything. Okay. Okay, so I know what to do. So this one is 64. Then this one's supposed to be uint. Very simple. Okay. Now I think we're all good. Let's give it a test. And first, let's see we can get one ID. And if you go to give the test again, you can call by specific ID. And you can do this ID here, and you should get only this record. If you try to find another one, of course it will give you record not found. I know it's supposed to be 404, but I don't have time to start giving specific error code right now. Now that we have that part sorted out, we need to then go to the front end. How do we make this code available in the front end? First of all, you do make gen, and it generates this TypeScript equivalent of all the things that we've been playing with, and makes it available for you in your front-end application. There's quite a lot of documentation on that part on its own. So I'll just go to the generated code, and that is under shared. I want to look at what it is it generated. Obviously, it will be generating, where is that job title guy? So this is the DTO for job title. Neat, clean, nice. Then we'll also be having the services, very important. The services is how we interact with the data. That way, if this changes in the future, you don't need to be looking towards this part in your code to change it. So this is the services we just call job. We just do our weights this guy, and then we pass whatever anything we need to pass. If we need to get, I don't know why I keep doing this to me. Now, it's also good that you are seeing this, because at some point it will do this to you. It's supposed to give me get job title by ID, but it's not doing that. So there's a fix that you have to do. You manually have to do it, which I don't like, but I don't have a choice. I think it's called, you have to say ID. Yep, you have to do this. and pass it this way. So if you do this, let's go and call that make gen again and see what happens. So if you do make gen and you go to that service guy, it should have changed now, because that part is very important. So if you come here, you can see that it's actually being called what you call it. So automatically it's supposed to use this, but for some funny reason, what I think is happening is that because it sees this, it's not, and it sees that it's the same. I don't know why. It always messes that up. This is a thing I've noticed with it. I think it's a bug in the tool that I'm using to generate the APIs. So, but it is what it is. Let's move on. So the good thing is I have alternative to it. It's by supplying the ID you want to call it from the front end. So it gets to use this. You have to say @ID and you pass the ID you want to call it. So this guy has been generated and we can use it judiciously in our system. This is the location services that the other person did, and then you have all these things. So if, let's say, we change the names and everything internally, this will just resolve and it will just make sense. That is the beauty of having this guy generate this code for us. Now, we're now going to the front end, which is one of the most interesting parts, and it sometimes can be boring, right? So how do we go ahead and do this part? Let's go in. So now that we're in, there's quite a lot of things that we've not yet done. Like this page is not available, obviously. So this page is under admin/job title. We have to create everything from scratch. And this is on purpose so that you see the flow of how the whole thing will be set up. Okay. There's quite a complex network of routes that I've designed or that I've put in place, which we have to follow meticulously to meet what we're trying to achieve. I'm still trying to make sure that it is well documented and it's well highlighted, and it can be easily followed. So this is what we have. We have the route, admin route. We are looking for the job title. So here admin/job title is where it goes to. I'm looking for where the job title is, and I can't find the job title here. Interesting. So how did we get here? So we have the admin, we have I'm looking for the job title. I'm trying to even remember how I got to this page. Okay, so the job title route was not there. That's why it brought 404. So if you have the job title route, you will not see 404. So let's go ahead and create. Before we create it, there's this segment and paths I created. This is just a way to create a link to where you want to go to. This one here is the admin, and this is the employee company announcement. I think you saw that from the UI. All this one here are mapped already. So the one that is not mapped is, well, some are not still mapped. Job title is not mapped, and we're about to map it now. So I'm looking at where to actually slot it. I could actually slot it anyway. Let me just slot it here. So this is now admin location. I will say admin job title is defined, luckily. So, and you can see the part is already available. And I can change this to job title. So immediately this page becomes activated. Hooray. So it's not that easy. So we need to now create the page itself. This is just a link, and at some point I've talked about this before. this allows me to create a list of all my pages, and so I don't need to create them again. I can reroute any part of the page to this part just by mentioning the segments and what have you. So if tomorrow I decide to change the parts, it doesn't affect, where it's being used. Okay, so let's see, how do we go on here? You see what I did in announcements? I think I've done announcements. What I did here was to create a kind of complex arrangement where I can do the parts, and then I have the ID, and then I say, updates. It's a little bit complex, right? And the idea is that you can, let me go there. I know I'm digressing a little bit. So if you see if you can read the part on top, it says announcement, then the ID, then the view. And the idea is that the system reads it to bring up these breadcrumbs. So that's another thing entirely on its own. So we'll get to that later. So I use that to also do the same, to achieve the same thing. So we might be looking into going into that methodology as well, to be able to do some of the updates we're about to achieve. So this is the announcement segment, just to show the announcement page. And once you're in, you can also have this one. I also want to create a different page for routes, because if you notice, this page is becoming bigger, right? And we're still having more page or more apps that will be coming in. So we should have individual page to handle each of these routes themselves, because this guy is gonna get big. So I could literally just copy this one. This is for edit and this is for view, but let's start with just view, because there's quite a lot of things that need to happen in the view section first. So if you come here, it's supposed to show you a table of the list of jobs available. Now we need to change our view to a component, because right now it's still showing this. I like the way this thing just snapping. So it's about to give us error now. So this is called job title. I don't know why I'm not calling them page. Okay, I call this admin page. Okay, so let's say job title page. And of course it does not exist. So import from so I'm saying job title page. So we then need to go and create that inside route admin. I'll create a folder. So where is that folder again? Page.txs. Okay. Now the next thing is I can just duplicate what is in this page. Trust me, I don't want to start this, but I will need to explain anyway. There's a lot of things going on here. I will need to explain. First of all, I need to change the name of this page to job title page to satisfy this man. Okay, now that this guy is satisfied, we need to make sure that this data matches what it's supposed to match. Now I've been creating some components, and that component is this table, which we'll be using. It's an headless table from which guys? Tank stack, yeah, from them. React table, and it's a headless table, which requires you to do a lot of work. Okay, so I'm getting this guy, so I'm going to be doing a lot of copying and pasting. We're going to be doing a lot of repetition. Over time we'll see how we can automate that copying and paste scenario. So now we need to be able to get paged data, which we did not do. What we just did was that we got array of announcements. There's this also kind of data we need to also provide, which is paged data. I call it paged model name. And the idea is that you have the data you're returning and also the pagination. That needs to be done. We will need to go back to the backend now and do that. And that one will allow us to require us to do a lot of more stuff that I want to do, but we'll just have to do it. So let's quickly go that. We'll do mostly copy and paste on the solution that's already available. Most of the solution, or most of the stuff, is actually at the, is it at the data level? Yes, at the DAO level. Let me check. So I have the announcement. Yes, it's at the DAO level, which is interesting. So what is happening here is that we are still returning announcements, by the way, but we're also returning the pagination, because the pagination will let you know, oh, I'm fetching one of these. This is what I'm fetching. So instead of normal getting job title, we are returning 3 things, and that's what we want to do here. So I'm going to copy all these guys, and I'm going to provide it here. So especially when you're returning a lot of stuff like this. And I'm going to change this one to pagination of this. Then so this guy eventually required context. So at some point we need context here, because context is needed to get some other things. So we need the context eventually. Now that you need the context, you don't normally you don't need the tenant ID again, because you could actually get a tenant ID, and I'm going to show you how to get it. Like, you don't need to provide it here. So let me show you a shortcut. Since you require the context, because this guy has forced us to need the context, so I have to specify my context here that I need it. So now I have to provide it. I can for this. I don't need the tenant ID for now. You're gonna see I'm gonna get a tenant ID. Maybe I've gone to do automation. So I don't want to do automation. I don't want the AI to help me, because I want to explain what is going on. Okay, so now that I've done this, it means whosoever is calling this should send context to it. But what about this guy? Remember that we know how to get this guy. Let me set the context first. So the context is coming from whatever you've provided here. So that this one will now be utility.get tenant. We now have the context that has been sent is what you should use to get the tenant. So you don't need to pass the tenant when you are creating it. Automatically, we know the tenant. So it doesn't break anything. We are still using the tenant. So we don't need to go and be looking for a tenant individually inside the function. Okay, so this one is D we are using, and we use D. Okay, I spell context in full here. Context is spelled in full. Now we are not using announcements, we are using job title. So job title, I'm not returning this guy. So here, job title. Why is query on the line? So this filter is supposed to allow you decide what your query parameters are in searching the database. So this one is, okay, the keyword. This is what is coming from the parameter from the front end, what people will be searching for. So I will just use one parameter that they can only search for one particular thing. So, and it's called name. Okay, the name. So let's say name. So this is what someone can only search for. So I'm feeling like this query is used somewhere else before. This is missing something. So because normally when you are doing something like this, I want to call the query once. So this is supposed to be query here, and it's at the end you run it like so. So this one, you are not finding it at this point. You are first holding the query here. I think this is the way it's supposed to be. Then this one is running like so. Okay, so I think I'm having a syntax issue. Okay, I'm gonna come back to that. Let me go back to the announcement to see where the syntax is coming from. Yeah, this is this. Okay. I'm tired of searching. So the problem is from here. There's a dot at the end of this part. Now, let's move on to the next thing. We have our pagination set. So now at the point of where we are calling this, of course we'll have error because we are returning three things now. So the three things we are returning is we now have the pagination data, which is PGS. Don't know what else to call it. So now we don't need the tenant anymore. We need context. So we can say x.context, and you don't need to create tenants. You don't need to pass tenant to it. It will figure itself out and find out the tenants from the context. That's the point. So we'll save one line of code in that part. The same thing applies here. You don't need this anymore. It will get that by itself. So now we need to look at how this one was implemented in the services part. So in the services part, we put it this way. So this is what happened in the services part. You can see that we return the 3 items. So the services part of this will be like so. So this one becomes the paged. So this return announcement. So return jobs. So it's not going to be called paged announcement. It's going to be paged job title, which does not exist yet. Carries the pagination. Inside it, we have job titles. Then we have the jobs returned from the model. Okay. Then we can return, or rather we can do c.json http dot. Okay. Then return this guy. And what we are returning, no. I'm still in the service. I'm not in the controller yet, so I can't do this. So what we are returning is RT jobs. And RT jobs is a DTO for paged jobs. So I'm returning nil as an error. So paged jobs does not exist. Let's go and create paged jobs. So I'll take a queue from here. This is how paged jobs will look like. Type paged job titles. The idea is to create paginated jobs. And this one now becomes job titles with the S. This become job title. Instances of job title. And this one can then be job titles. So this is fixed. It remains the same. And this part now becomes alive. Okay, there's quite a lot of things we need to worry about. When we want to return nil, this guy needs to be a star. And since that guy is a star, this guy needs to be a reference. Star means pointer. By default, it's reference. Okay, so I think everything looks good. The next thing is for us to actually try what we just did to see if it works, if the pagination will kind of work. Let's see. Hit the button, and we're interested in the last thing that it shows, which is here. This is the pagination part. It's kind of worked. So this is how it is. So let me just return, let me call a more subtle endpoint, and that is just to say, so how do I even call this now? I can pass page and say 1 or page size. I can't remember the parameters again. I'm trying to remember all the parameters that I can pass to it. Okay. I can't remember the parameters. Okay, let me say size. I didn't even spell the page size correctly. But let me try size. Okay, let me try page size. Why would I call it page size? let me figure out what that thing is called. So to know what I call it, I have to look at the implementation of pagination. I literally call it page size. Page size is 20. Don't tell me that you're ignoring the command. Okay, so let's call it again. So it's working actually. So page size, I told it that it should do 2 records per page, which it did. So this 1 record, this is 2 records, and then page size is 1, page is 1, size is 2, total is 11, pages is 6. So our pagination is working and the data is there. The next thing I want to do is, because we need to implement that pagination before we can use table. If you must use table, you need to make sure that your pagination is working or is returning data in the form of that paginated way. So we do make gen, and we need that to generate a new set of wheels for us. I'm going to close everything again and start afresh. Well, when I mean start afresh, go to the front end guy and look what is happening here. Now I'm going to change everything. Now we're expecting that we're going to get paged job titles because I've exported the data and they are all good. If I should come to shared, I should be seeing my model to have paged data, paged job title. That's good. It's not showing us page job title, and there's a reason for that, because we did not specify it in our controller. We didn't tell it that that's what we want to see in our controller. So very important. All these things are important. So this is what's happening here. We didn't specify it, so I will say paged announce with the S. So if I do a call again to it, make gen, it should do the needful and generate it. Let's just confirm quickly that our code is being generated. So that's it here. We have it here, and you could see this nice an array of this. We have pagination going there. Backend, front end. Let's go to the front end quickly and render the data. We are in, where are we? Hooks? No, not hooks. We're in routes. Routes, admin, job, pages. Yes. Now, I did mention that what we're using is headless, right? So there's going to be a lot of repetition. I'll find out how it can be easy to, make life easier, not to repeat quite a lot of things, but for now we'll repeat some small things. So I'm going to find all instances of this and replace with job title. I just did that. And the next one is also find all instances of this. I think it just appeared in 2 or 3 places, and replace with job titles with S. So that is not all, because we need to go through it one after the other and see where we're referring to announcement related information and where we are referring to job title stuff, because they will match. Now this can go title and title, but you must note that title is not available in job title. What's available in job title is called name. That's the column that was used to refer to, well, one of those things that we need. So but here it's called title because announcement has title. So those are one of the annoying parts of using this guy, but you have to follow it. So I change this to name, and let me start. Okay, it has logged us out for some reason. Let's go back in because I would like to see how the things are coming up. Okay, draft. Okay, let's see how it's coming up. I don't know which data is bringing. I think it's still calling announcements because we can still see error up and down. Okay, so we are good with that part. This part looks great. Now the other part is announcements column. We need to rename this announcements column. I think I should find everything called announcements and rename it. I technically think it's safe. Is it? I think so. So no, it's not safe because we have case sensitive stuff. So what I want to do is let me first find all of this and change this to this is still not safe. Another thing you should also notice is that I also created a use announcement hook, and that is because there's a lot of crazy stuff happening inside the table thing, right? So all this now, just let it do its thing for it. So I'll have to do copy and paste and then let it. I don't know if I can get a generic component to do this for us instead of copying and paste renaming, because once there's error in one, it means there's error in all. So let me duplicate this. I would need to, maybe I'll do like use table so that will be used for everything. So this is use job title. So there should be like use table. I think there's use table, but there should be like our own use custom table. Use job title. Then I can now change all these things to match. So this one will now be job titles services, which is available. It's not available. Is there anything called job title services? Okay. Well, let me start renaming them now. So let me change this one to job title. Okay, so this one will be called job titles. I don't know why I flagged this one. So I need to see the way that the job title was spelled. Maybe it's small letter J under services. Job services. Oh, I didn't do job title services. Really? But that's fine. So okay, that is done. We still have a lot of announcements to rename. These ones are what the system used to remember what you used. Okay, use announcement option. I need to actually create a mega class for this thing. So this one now turns to use job title. Okay, we're getting there. So this one will now be get job titles. Then this one will now be get job title. Now, okay. So I didn't provide I didn't provide that all these things can be used to query job titles, which I'll provide now. That's why it's giving error. So, but first, I think I need to put name and remove this. But that keyword is not bad. So how do I provide all this? Is when I'm calling this guy, I need to have specified in the front end, in the back end rather. I need to have specified inside job services, in the controller, API controller rather. I need to have specified that parameter will be coming in. I need to specify that, which I did in the announcements. So this is it in the announcements. I said there's keyword, there's page, and there's page size. So I didn't specify that in here, and that's why I didn't generate those things. So we're not going to be using this. We're just going to call it name, filter by job title name, and we can then tell it to make gen again to generate it. So in the second, this should be valid. Now moving on, what other thing do we have? So these are implementation things I want to implement, but definitely not now. Okay, so what is keeping it from generating other things? Did I add it to the right parts? So I thought as much. I added this into the wrong parts. You guys don't even tell me. I'm sure you guys did, but so that should disappear. Okay, the name is still hanging out, so let me check why. Sorry. Okay, so why are you still hanging out? Who made it depreciated? Okay, just hang in there. We'll look into you later. Okay, so this part not doing anything. Okay, so this part's supposed to be name. We're getting somewhere. This part's supposed to be name as well. This part's supposed to be name, and this one is supposed to be gone. Okay. Now I've done, let me check what's going on in the back end. Okay, we're still having announcements still featuring. So so what I want to do now is I will have AI complete it for me, because I've used my eye to search and search and search, and I can't find which part is missing anymore. So what I want to do is that I need to match it to match this section. So that I will just copy and paste the corrected part. Okay, so I have the fix, and that should solve our problem. Okay, so why is it giving issue here? Okay, so now we are on the page. Let's continue with the page that we are on. Our search criteria will just be only on name. So we have the status. I'm gonna just remove everything, and is the name that I want to show. Dates and everything, I'm removing it. Again, you can have AI generate all this code for you so that it's more easier and faster. But it has to match, so it has cleared everything, but it needs to render our own data. So because it's still pointing to some piece of announcements, one or two things from announcements. This one now is coming from announcements. So let me see what this one is saying. The origin is what? So now this one is calling DTO. Well, I need to call this job. Let me see what's happening inside the, because I didn't see the ID. That's interesting. I'm not passing ID. Okay, this is the ID, but the ID is supposed to come with just ID, not the full name ID. So that's correction on my part on this DTO part. So this is supposed to be ID like this. Okay. So this one is supposed to be announcement, page announcement. I have to rename all this one to page job. Then this one has to be called job titles. Then this one job titles. Then this is now use job title. So I can import this. This can be obsolete. Okay, that's eventually quit on me, but I'm gonna conquer you today. Let's go back to job title. Ah, voila! Eventually, it's showing our job title. We're getting somewhere, but I'm not done yet because, as you all know, I don't like reds. But I have to check everything. Notice that it's only one record I'm showing. I mean, one column. I don't want to go ahead and start showing audio columns now. So I just want to focus one thing at a time. So I see this announcement. I'm coming to it. Let's just first check all the needful. So now in the query, we are not searching by so many columns. We are just searching. When you want to do search, we're just using the name to search for now. So that means that we are not going to be, so this set name. So I'm not going to be doing keyword parts. Then we're going to look for where this one is implemented and change it to it, which I just did. So I'm using AI to just change all the things for me, I beg. Which other parts? So let me look for announcements. Okay, I've seen announcement. Now this one is the editing when you view, where it goes to and whatnot. That's what this one is for. Now, how does the navigation thing works? The navigation thing is very important. I try to automate as much as possible. And let's go to the view so you see what's going on. Now, oh, this is looking complex. So it's looking complex. So, okay. So the announcement itself is here. The view is a template. The update is also like a template, but you can see that it's passing the ID inside. So we're going to do the same thing for the job title. So the job title has a job title view, and eventually it's going to have updates, so that I can repeat what has been done here. I'm leaving this one like so, but the one for the if I can just copy this. No, not let me copy it. So I have the view. Let me break this one to create a visual distinction between what is going on here. So this one has to come like this, okay. Then the next part is to show the segment for the view, just a label to say view, even though you can do something like this and update. So we can actually manually put things like this as well. I think so, because now I'm overcomplicating things by having to have everything variabilized, putting everything in form of a variable, so you can actually, take a break and do something like this. Now, what that means is that if I go to, if I go back to here, I'm still coming to this error. If I go back to the page here, now what this does is that if I visit the job title view, obviously the job title view, it contains ID as a template. So I'm searching for the ID and I'm replacing it with my ID. And if I didn't see it, just put it blank. That's what this one is doing. So as you can see, look at the paths. The path says admin/job-title/column ID/view. That's beautiful. So you can see the details directly. We know that page does not exist. So if we click here, we get this stuff. But eventually we're going to make it available. So the part that I want to start testing is, let's see if it will work. If I change this to 5, did it work? Yes, it worked. So working out of the box is nice. So does the paging works? Obviously it works. Yeah, everything works out of the box. Now what I want to do is a way to avoid copying and pasting this, if it's possible. Even though there's no much work there, each of the table needs to have its own use stuff where you can go and do. This is where the pagination and everything is implemented. I'm kind of concerned that this one is having error. Let me see, maybe I had the same issue with announcements and I just hide the error. At some point you hide the error. So let me see, nothing is hidden here. Okay, I know I hide one error here. That's for the any, but this one didn't return any error. So how so? Okay, let me see what error is saying. No overload matches this call. So let me check for the, okay, this one made it constant. So there was a different implementation here than here. When I took it to ChatGPT, it rewrites the thing for me. So the implementation here was different. Okay, let me see if I can copy everything like so and replace it like this. Okay, so he didn't use the query. Where did he use the query then? Okay, the query was returned at the end here. Okay. Let's use this implementation. This is supposed to be job title. With an S. With a name. It's your page job titles. So this is supposed to be job title. Okay, it's job services. I can't remember jobs services. Okay. So why is this guy giving me a tough time? Cannot find GTO paged job title. But that's the name now. What's your problem? So where is it? Paged job titles. Oh, okay. You were not imported. Okay. Sorry. Why are you saying extend constants? So this guy just gave me another problem. Okay, so I think we're going to resolve this off screen, but let me check if everything is working. I think that's a type issue, TypeScript issue. Everything is working. We could search by, of course, we can't search by status, but we didn't even try to see if search works, which I think it will work. It didn't work. Whoa. So we need to make search work, else our job is not done. So the search need to work. How do we make search work? We go to what is responsible for the search. Now there's two types of search. There's the filter and then there's the job search. We need to know which one we're using to do what. So I'll do set name. Who is using what? If I check for search name is for the input search, which is what I was expecting. But at the point of used, what happened? Who is it sending it to? Who is it sending it to? So the name is being set here. me see what happens when you hit the enter button, if it's been sent to the backend to process. So let's say we do HR. So let's break this down. It's actually doing the needful. Yep, it's doing the needful, like it's sending that to name. It put the everything there. So we need to go to our query to see if it's working, why it's not working. We can also quickly do the tests ourselves before we start troubleshooting. So I can come here and say name is equal to HR. I should expect something. If I did not see anything, my query is wrong. I just quickly remember that we didn't look at that query very well when we were implementing it. DAO is where we should go to. This is where the problem is. We didn't specify the kind of search we want to operate on the guy. So this search here is 1-to-1. We need to give it small precise search. Like what we want to do is a kind of a like. So if you want to do a like, you have to tell it to use like, which is true. The way the criteria in which to search the parameter, we say use like. So if you do that, if you type HR, it will bring results. It should bring results, which is still not bringing yet. Let's see. Where is the test guy? Okay, it's bringing results here. I see I search for HR, it brought results. So if I search for MD, it should bring anything that has MD along with it. So which is correct. So here, if I search, yeah, it's working now. So what happened when I search HR? Yeah, it's working now. Let's search for dev. We have 2 dev, intern. Good. Our results search is working, and you can make it search for quite a lot of things. This is how you can make it search for other parameter or other columns within the same table. So where are you again? Yes. How do I even specify multiple columns? Trying to remember how I specify multiple columns. I did a lot of hack on this part of the page. I can't remember. I have to check. There's a way to specify multiple columns. Let me look at, I even need to, yes, you have to specify columns. I actually need to document this very well for proper usage. So if you want to query more than one particular columns and you want it to be dynamic, so let me look for columns that I will want to also search with, and that can be, let me check. For now, there's no other column I want to search with. I think the name is just what I will use for now, but let me add the number as well. So we'll do this. So we'll do this. This will be strings of name, and what other thing do we need to provide to it? We'll do kind of thinking of what to also use. Yeah, we use number. So that way we will be able to, this is supposed to be string. So let me make it more readable. Okay, I think we can pass everything as one, but if you want to make this readable, you can do something like this. So if you search anything now, it's your name will search through the job title name and also the job title number. Okay, so that's what we can actually take for today. Thank you.